So Google, the company that we use to, like Google things, has just lost an antitrust case with the FTC. What this means is that the FTC has alleged and confirmed that Google had been paying off companies like Apple and Samsung billions of dollars in order to for them to use Google as their default app. The reason why they could do this is Google was already big. Google could then use their ad serving software in order to price hike that software so that companies that needed to, display ads, maybe small businesses, maybe big businesses, whatever it was, they would either have to pay that fine, that toll fee, or go somewhere else. Maybe their business would just completely fail because Google had market dominance, right? It's not completely sure what would be done now. What most likely will happen is that they will either be broken up, fined, or something else might happen in order to prevent them from doing this again. Essentially, whatever needs to happen so Google doesn't have market dominance, or at least paid for market dominance. If they're going to have it, it needs to be but naturally by just having the better software, which if you've used Google anytime recently, that's just like not true. The AI thing is awful, and you kind of have to put Reddit behind every search to get something that you even remotely could use. The FTC has also brought a couple of other cases up against big tech, such as Amazon, Meta, and Apple, saying that they all have monopolies and market dominance in their spaces, and they've only gotten there using unfair and predatory practices. Lina Khan is an important figure in all of this. Lina Khan works at the FTC, but first she graduated from Yale, where she wrote this article called Amazon's Antitrust Paradox, where she basically alleges that Amazon was operating the same way that the railroads were operating pre-regulation in the Gilded Age, right before the Great Depression, that whole thing. The Great Depression was caused by the 1929 stock market crash, but luckily we don't have to worry about that, right? Because those giants, they were bad. Our giants are good. Our stocks are doing well, right? Lina Khan is an immigrant who was born in North London but moved to the US when she was 11. She went on then to Yale to eventually write this article, Amazon's Antitrust Paradox, in which again she compared some of these bigger companies to like the robber barons and specifically the railroad companies before the Great Crash, the Great Depression. The railroad industry was controlled by a network of corporations that used their dominance in the market to price gouge not only the government but the American people in order to basically use their railroads, which they had to do to remain competitive. They had to use those railroads and had to deal with the price hikes. Didn't matter. And this money was then used to line the pockets of the big corporate greedy owners that owned the railroads. Lina alleges that Amazon is using a very similar situation with their e-commerce site that the railroads used in the Gilded Age by basically comparing that dominance that those corporate nasty business owners had on the railroads to the dominance that Amazon has. They basically dictate how well you perform, how well you do. And again, don't do too well, because if you do too well, then what they will do is they will launch a similar product at a cost cheaper than yours, cheaper than something that's profitable. But because they're bigger, they can handle the losses, they can tank the losses. When your company is bankrupt and gone, then they can hike those prices right back up. The FTC alleges that the dominance that Apple has on the market is in their app store, in which they don't allow companies that offer similar softwares to compete. Maybe softwares like cloud streaming services or digital wallets or music streaming platforms, whatever it is, Apple has the market dominance on that, and where they can charge other companies fees via the app stores to allow them to enter their app market. Apple doesn't pay those fees because they own the app market. Meta's situation is a bit different. Meta's situation is they were scared of companies such as WhatsApp and Instagram and bought them in order to stop them from growing bigger than they were. So what the FTC wants to do with Meta is roll back those purchases, and then hopefully they can grow to a reasonable size, or Facebook comes down to a reasonable size in which there is competition in the social media apps again. So the FTC, those are the cases brought up by the FTC in order to rebuild confidence back in competition with the markets, and hopefully regulate the stock market a little bit more with that. My personal opinion is I'm not a huge fan of relying on the stock market to deal with my retirement and my 401k. What could be done to these big companies is that taxes are applied to them. So even if they do get big, while we wait for the FTC to regulate them, hopefully our retirements are not in jeopardy. We don't want what happened with CrowdStrike, where they, were out for a day and lost massive amounts of money. What was it? Estimated about 500 million to happen to us and our retirements. Because what then? What do we do then? Our safety net should be provided by the government, not by corporations, trying to get their way around the government, right? Either way, I'm excited to see what Lina Khan does. She does seem to have a good head on her shoulders and seems to have been here for a while, arguing that these big tech companies are evil, and they are. To be honest, they are. Our retirements should not be locked up in these massive tech companies where our retirements are, have 50-60% of their portfolios in these big tech companies because of how quickly they've been rising, how much money they've been making. If you can, please subscribe, like, and comment. Any engagement is helpful. I'm a small channel, so hopefully I can make more videos like this coming soon. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.